Hello, welcome to the Opinionists podcast. We're your hosts, John Maloney and Risk 11. Our guest today from Denver, Colorado, we have Terry Tucker.
Okay, I'll let you start off with questions, Jamie.
Yay! Round of applause, everyone! Yahoo! So, Terry, tell us about what you do for a living, or
What's your...
Well, unfortunately, I haven't really worked for the last 10 years when I developed a very rare form of cancer that I've been fighting. But what I have been able to do over these past 10 years is to kind of focus my purpose, which really right now is to put as much goodness, positivity, motivation, love, for lack of a better word, back into the world as I can. And I do that kind of by telling my cancer journey and the things that I've experienced in my life. I wrote a book in 2020, and I've just turned that into a membership now, which I just launched in June. So it's very much in its infancy right now, and I'm trying to figure all that out. So it was just something that I felt people were asking after reading the book. I want to go deeper. I want to learn more, and so a membership in terms of really, this is the first time I've monetized anything in the last 10 years. So that's kind of my gist as of right now.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
And what kind of got you into this jig?
I think really, my cancer journey has been one that has just kind of been one up and down after another. I was on a 5-year drug therapy that gave me severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after I took the drug, and I took a weekly injection. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years, and that was not a cure for me. That was, as my doctor used to say, we're trying to kick the can down the road to buy you more time. Eventually, I had to stop the therapy because I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees, which is usually not compatible with being alive. In 2018, I had my left foot amputated. In 2020, I had my left leg amputated. So it's really kind of been a battle all along. And I've learned things. I've learned things about mindset. I've learned things about motivation that I just feel I would like to share with whatever time I have left. So that's really kind of the backstory, I guess, for lack of a better word, of what's gotten me to this point.
Okay. Incredible. Any questions you want to ask, Risk?
I'm sure there'll be some later on.
Okay. All right then. So, what was life for you growing up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago in the United States, one of the larger cities in the country. And you can't tell this from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I played college basketball as a result of my height and the skill that I had. I have a brother who's 6'7", who was a baseball pitcher. Another brother who's 6'6", who played professional basketball here in the United States. And then my dad was 6'5". So I sort of joked that, if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on, in front of you. But our 5'8" mother was the boss. It didn't matter how big, tall, strong we were, whatever mom said, that's kind of the way it went. So we were an athletic family. We were always running to games and practices and things like that. And I think our parents really showed us the value of family, of caring for each other, of loving each other, of supporting each other in our different endeavors as we've gone throughout our lives. My father has since passed away, but my brothers and my mom still live in Chicago. As a matter of fact, my brothers were out here for a few days a couple of weeks ago, and it was great. I mean, we didn't leave the house. We didn't turn the television on. We just spent time talking about our growing up, what stories we had, and laughing incredibly. So I really, that was a big deal in my life. I went to a military college to play basketball, but had the good fortune of my senior year in college of playing against Michael Jordan when he was a freshman in college. So I've had some great experiences. And then when I graduated from college, I had some great business or opportunities. I started out in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. Then I was a hospital administrator for a number of years. And then I made a major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And part of that was working undercover narcotics. I was also a SWAT team hostage negotiator. Then started my own school security consulting business and coached girls high school basketball when I was diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is quite the journey.
So what made you want to go from working at Wendy's to the? It's like a big jump to go like working for become a policeman from like what you were doing before. Like, what made you want to make that change?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you sort of understand the backstory, it makes a little more sense. The backstory is my grandfather was a Chicago police officer from 1924 to 1954. So in the United States, that was a time when prohibition existed, when alcohol was outlawed in the United States. It was during the Great Depression, the late 20s, the early 1930s. Excuse me. And it was also a time when the gangsters, when the mob was sort of shooting up the town. And my grandfather was actually shot in the line of duty with his own gun, taking a homicide suspect back to the lockup. And my dad always remembered the stories. Let me back up for a second. My grandfather, it was not a serious injury. He was shot in the ankle. It was not a life-threatening injury. But my dad always remembered the stories that my grandmother told of that knock on the door of, Mrs. Tucker, grab your son. And my dad was an infant at the time. Come with us. Your husband's been shot. And you can imagine trauma medicine in 1935 was nothing like trauma medicine is today. So when I expressed an interest in going into law enforcement, my father was absolutely not. You're going to go to college. You're going to major in business. You're going to get out, get a great job, get married, have 2.4 kids, and live happily ever after. That's what my dad wanted me to do. That's not what I felt my passion was. I felt my purpose was to be in law enforcement. And when I graduated from college, my father and my grandmother were both in the same house. They were both dying of different forms of cancer. So I had a choice. I could have said, sorry, Dad, I'm going to go blaze my own trail and go into law enforcement, or out of love and respect for you, I will do what you want me to do and go into business. So if you look at my resume, my first 2 jobs were in business, and I sort of joke, I did what every good son did. I waited till my father passed away, and then I followed my dreams.
True.
Okay.
Sorry,
go on.
I was going to ask if there's any other topics you wanted to talk about, Jamie.
I just never thought that. I haven't never thought about this. You first went into business, and then when your father passed away, you kind of go into law enforcement. That's really the first I've ever heard about.
Yeah, it's certainly, law enforcement, I think around the world today, certainly in the United States, it's not a popular profession these days. But it's something that I always felt I was drawn to. And yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think my purpose, my passion, my why, whatever you want to call it, has changed throughout my life. When I was young, it was basketball. I mean, I ate, drank, slept basketball. And that got me an education. That got me to college. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. And then after college, my passion was law enforcement. So I spent a number of years in an occupation, in several occupations, that I learned a lot. And I think I was able to take that, and I had some life experience when I became a police officer, but it didn't get me up in the morning and be like, I can't wait to go to work. It was sort of biding time, for lack of a better word. And then when I was able to get into law enforcement, I loved it. I couldn't wait to go to the job and in whatever capacity it was, whether it was working drugs or whether it was hostage negotiation or whether I was just in a marked car, in a uniform answering radio runs. And now that I've had cancer and probably coming to the end of my life, it's really more about putting more back into the world, more goodness, more positivity and things like that. So I think, a lot of times we talk about our purpose or our passion, and we think it's got to be one thing and it's got to be one thing for our entire lives. I don't believe that's the case, because mine has certainly changed throughout my life. And then I guess finally, to kind of round this answer out, a lot of times we think that our purpose or our passion has to be our job. It's what we do for a living. And it doesn't. I mean, your job can be over here. It's what you do to pay the bills, but your purpose or your passion is, to write or to be podcast host or to be whatever it is that's in your heart. And I always tell young people, especially, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be the things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And was there anything else you wanted to do growing up, or was it just the things you've just done that you wanted to do?
Pretty much the things I just did. I mean, my father was in law enforcement. No, my father was in real estate. And, I mentioned that he was sick when I graduated from college. And he had, at the time, end-stage breast cancer, which back in the 1980s, for a male, they really didn't know how to treat that. And so they ended up basically sending him home to die. I mean, they tried a few things, but it was more like, let's throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. But he lived for another 3.5 years. And I believe he did because he had a purpose. And like I said, I think his purpose was real estate. He had done that his entire life. He loved doing that. He worked up till 2 weeks before he died. And so I kind of remembered that and sort of tucked it away in the back of my mind, because I knew someday, I would be older, I would be sick. And I needed to make sure that I just didn't lay in bed and feel sorry for myself. I needed to have something worthwhile, or at least that I felt was worthwhile, to be able to do, to sort of sustain myself, to sort of not be in that mode of, oh, woe is me, I've got cancer, I've lost my leg and all that kind of stuff. I don't focus on that. I focus on now doing things like this, talking to you guys and maybe making a difference in the lives of the members of your audience that listen to our conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Life's too short for, like you said, life's too short. You just got to live in the now.
It is. It's absolutely too short. And people don't realize that. So many people live, I guess, what I would call a casual life. And because of living that casual life, their goals, their dreams, their aspirations become a casualty of sort of that unplanned living. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we all need to have fun and kind of unwind and, do things we enjoy. But at the same time, I think we all have a purpose. And to be able to find that purpose and live it, if you do that, when you come to the end of your life, death is not nearly as scary as all those people who didn't find their purpose, didn't even look for it. And now it's the end of their life and they're begging and screaming for another month or another year to do the things they didn't do. I think it was Seneca who said, a life well lived is long enough.
Absolutely.
Sounds about right.
So do you have a favorite sport? Of course, basketball, because you did basketball in the past.
Yeah.
Do I have a favorite sport, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes. What is your favorite sport? I already knew the answer anyway.
In all honesty, I don't think you did. My favorite sport, and this is going to sound weird. I mean, basketball was my sport growing up, but I am a big baseball fan. I love baseball here in the United States. I mean, a lot of people think, well, that's really boring. It takes forever to do stuff. But I really enjoy baseball as my favorite sport.
Okay. Yeah, I do like a bit of baseball every once in a while.
What about you guys? What about favorite sport for you?
Mine would be boxing or UFC. Jamie, what would yours be?
Well, my favorite sport is football, or the Americans call it soccer. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, soccer wasn't even a sport in the United States that was offered. I mean, kids played football, baseball, basketball, and some of us, and I did this just to stay in shape out of basketball season, where we ran track or cross country. But soccer really wasn't something I mean, our daughter played soccer and things like that, but it wasn't something that was big here in the United States when I was growing up.
I suppose.
It is it's probably one of the biggest things in Europe, like soccer or like football. And Jamie can attest to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the football or soccer clubs in Europe are like one of the most valuable and wealthiest of all the sports teams across the globe, and there's no debate around that whatsoever. Maybe against
Basketball
NBA
team,
or,
well,
and then there's American football
American
teams.
football
That's
teams
about
are
it. Yeah.
would say some of them are worth a fortune.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. I live in Denver, Colorado, which is kind of in the Rocky Mountains, and we have a football team that was just sold to a group of business people, and I want to say it was sold for like, I don't know, $3.2 billion or something like that.
Right? That sounds about as much it would probably go for.
Yeah,
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions you'd like to ask, Jamie?
Do you like spicy food?
I do like spicy food, not too spicy, but I do. My wife made a homemade spaghetti sauce yesterday that was pretty. We were both like, "Wow, this is a little hot." So yeah, I enjoy spicy food. Kind of spices life up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds great. If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
Boy, that's a great question. That's a really great question. I don't know. I'm sure it'd be something catchy or something like that I probably will not come up with. I hope it would be something around resilience of not quitting, of not giving up. Because I kind of feel that's what my life has been about. And certainly the last 10 years and bits and pieces along the way of things that have happened that, I mean, we all deal with pain. Pain, I think, in our lives is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, I think suffering's optional. I think suffering is kind of what you do with that pain. Do you use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual? Or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want other people to feel sorry for you? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not Superman. I have bad days. I get down. I feel sorry for myself. I even cry from time to time, but I just don't let myself stay in that kind of, woe is me type of atmosphere. And I have a friend of mine who is a former Navy SEAL, some of the toughest men in the world, who the SEALs talk about their 40% rule, which basically says that, if you're at the end of your rope, if you're done, if you don't think you can go on, you're only at 40% of your maximum, and you still have another 60% left in reserve to give to yourself. So whenever I get into those dark places, I always remember that I have so much more left in reserve that I can use to get out of that and try to keep moving forward. I kind of hijacked your question and turned it into something else because I really have no idea what a title of a book would be.
Yeah,
that's a really good point you put out, because I've built a strong resilience over the last few years, and what you just said to me right now, that's something I really take into account for myself, because I know I have a lot more potential than I already do have, but I've never thought I had it in me. So what you just said has really enlightened me for the better. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. I really believe that, and it's not only do I believe it, I try to live it. And I talked about basketball when I was growing up. I had a person who was in the same conference that I was in, who went to the University of Indiana, which was a big basketball school here in the United States, and played for a coach by the name of Bobby Knight. And Bobby Knight had a saying that went like this, said, mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So here's this great coach teaching, elite athletes to use their bodies to be great basketball players on the court. But what he's really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is 4 times more important than anything your physical body's going to do. If you don't have that mindset back in, and I'm really going to date myself here now, guys, but back in 1976, I was 16 years old, and there was a U.S. gold medal winning Olympic swimmer by the name of Shirley Babashaw, who had another great quote. And this is what she said. She said, winners think about what they want to happen. Losers think about what they don't want to happen. So if you think about that, winners can override their negative brains and focus on the things they want to occur, while as losers, they can only see the negative aspects of pursuing a goal or a dream.
Oh, yes.
So they
Absolutely.
manifest their goals and what they want to achieve.
Yeah,
And
I mean, they see it. They put it in their mind's eye. The same part of your brain that makes the neuro connections when, for example, in basketball, you shoot free throws. I remember there was a coach when I was growing up who wanted to improve his team's free throw shooting percentage. And so after practice, he had half the team that actually physically shot free throws, shot 50 free throws after practice. And then he had another part of his team that sat on the sidelines, closed their eyes, and in their mind saw themselves shooting free throws. And at the end of the season, he did a comparison of which group had the better free throw shooting percentage. And it was the group that did not shoot all the free throws. It was the group that saw themselves in their mind shooting free throws, because in their mind, they never missed. You don't shoot a free throw in your mind and miss. You're going to make it. And so, if you think about that, the same area in your brain that lights up when you physically do something is the same area that lights up when you think about doing those things. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing it or whether you're thinking about it, which to me, it makes me very cautious about the things that I think about, because it sounds like, and I think this is true, we all become what we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely sounds like that would make it that would happen. Like manifesting what your goals. Any other questions?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Good. Would you rather be really hot or really cold?
I'd rather be really hot. I mean, I grew up in, as I told you, in Chicago. Chicago's a city that's cold in the winter. It's bitterly cold in the winter because the wind comes off the lake and it sort of picks up that frigid, and it cuts right through you. So I've been that, and I've also been in the south part of the United States that is hot and humid and muggy. So I would take hot, humid, and muggy over cold any day.
All right, fair enough. What is the most comfortable piece of clothing you own?
I have a sweatshirt that I've had for years that if my wife got her hands on it would definitely put it in the garbage. But it has been worn and washed so many times that it is just unbelievably soft, and I love wearing it. Even in the summer when it's warm, if I'm inside, I'll put it on just because it's so comfortable.
Wow, I can certainly see that now. What bad habits do you want to get rid of?
What bad habit do I want to get rid of? I am having a difficult time re-engaging with working with my prosthetic leg. I spent some time with a physical therapist learning how to walk with a prosthetic leg to walk my daughter down the aisle when she got married last October. And since then, I have really kind of, I could give you a million excuses, but that's all they would be excuses as to why I don't spend more time on my prosthetic leg. I hate being in a wheelchair. I would much rather try to engage with walking again. I don't trust the leg, and it is a state-of-the-art prosthetic. It has a microprocessor in the knee. You plug it in at night, so that it kind of recharges. It's an amazing piece of equipment, but I don't trust it enough. So I guess I would like to break the habit of not trusting my prosthetic leg right now.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. Do you have any hidden talents?
I mean, physical talent. I mean, like, can I play an instrument or something? No, nothing in that regard. I think I'm pretty good at perceiving things about people. I'm pretty good at picking up on clues for things that people are saying, or maybe even more importantly, things that people aren't saying. I think that comes from the number of years that I was a hostage negotiator, trying to negotiate with somebody that we're not usually face to face with. It's usually done over the phone or, behind a wall or something like that. So you can't pick up, like most police officers can pick up on the physical clues. If I'm talking to you and you're kind of looking around, maybe you're going to run, maybe you're going to try to escape. If you're balling up your fists, maybe you want to fight me. But I can see that if I'm face to face with you. I can't see those kind of things. I can't see your body posture. I can't see your facial expressions when I'm negotiating with you. So you kind of have to figure things out based on what people are saying, what they're not saying, and how they're saying it.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. Because you never know what I might say, what I think, or anything like that. You can
but a lot of people give tells. It's kind of
Okay.
like poker players and stuff like that. Do they have a tell? Is it do they grab their ear? Do they whatever? People, it's subtle. Most people are subtle with it, but if you're watching them and kind of listening, and listening not to respond, but listening to understand, then you might pick up on, and I say you might pick up on those clues, and maybe be able to use them somehow to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can make one wish right now, what would it be?
I guess I wish that we would, as a world, as a society, whatever, I wish we would treat each other better. We would care about each other, and all those things I talked about that my parents taught us, about what's important in a family. I think those are important when we interact with each other. How do you treat people? There's a great book, if you want to read a good book, it's called Legacy. It's written by a man by the name of James Kerr, and it's about the New Zealand national rugby team. And I don't know anything about rugby, so I'm not even going to try, but two of the things that they look for when they're bringing a new player onto their team. Obviously you want to be good in rugby, but the two other things they look for are, one, character. What kind of person are you? How do you treat people when you lose? Everybody treats everybody great when they win, but how do you treat other people when they lose? And the second thing is humility. And I think back on my life of how many job interviews I've had where I sort of felt that I better have all the answers to the questions that I'm asked. Otherwise, I'm not going to get the job. And really what they say is that you individually don't have to have all the answers, but us collectively, us as a team, will come together and figure out the answers. So, character and humility, I think, are really important traits that somehow get left out. It's kind of like, hey, it's all about me. Do what I want to do. I'm important. And I don't really think that's the case. I always tell, especially young people, it's like, hey, you're unique. Yes, you have unique gifts and talents, but I hate to tell you this, you're really not that special. So, and that's coming from an old man, so you guys can take that for what you want. But I really think character and humility and treating each other better would be something I would wish for the world if I had a magic wand or wish.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I would say, like, in a company and in like a business, teamwork is the most important thing. It's not one person that leads.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. And leadership is kind of one of those things where, I mean, think about it. You hire somebody to do a job, and then what are you going to do? Micromanage them? You're going to sit. I mean, if that's the case, then why did you hire them? Why don't you just do the job? And that frustration of, the way I look at it is leadership is I hire you or I empower you to do something. Basically, yes, I want to lead from the front, follow me. I hope I set a good example, but I also think I have to lead from the back. In other words, what do you need to be successful? Okay, let me get that for you. Let me make sure you have what you need to be successful. And if that means me getting out of your way, then that's what I need to do. And like I said, I've seen a lot of people get hired for their expertise, and then their manager, either because their manager feels insecure that they don't have the skills this person has, or because their manager's been burned before by somebody who kind of went rogue or went around them, that they just kind of clamp down on them. And when you go to the bathroom, you got to tell me, like, what? Yeah, I mean, that obviously a bad, that doesn't happen, but it's kind of that thing. You can't think or breathe without letting me know what's going on. Well, you're not going to stay in that environment very long because you're not appreciated or valued for what you bring to the table.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all we have for this episode. It was great having you here. You worked in motivation, your career as a basketball player, and everything else. It's been fabulous.
Well, thanks you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, hopefully our conversation will make a difference in somebody's life when they hear it. And if it does, today's been a good day.
It sure will. And until next time, stay opinionated.